Shalom. First thing and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone that rule well. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Northern is gospel broad, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is another lesson through the Spirit. Executive Order 14321, which is basically a bill that Trump has signed allowing citizens to be detained that's homeless or they have some type of quote unquote drug problem. And basically, there's a couple of videos of people expressing their disdain for this new bill because they don't believe it's for the benefit of the people, which most of these bills aren't. But it says here, Executive Order 14321, ending crime and disorder on American streets, which, as we've seen in tandem with what's happening in the cities today with martial law and ICE being deployed and federal troops are being deployed to the streets of Babylon to quell unrest. This is all plays it all plays into the narrative, okay? Disorder on American streets, meaning that they can grab up citizens and anybody that they deem as unsatisfactory, they can lock your ass up. Because remember, Trump was flying those particular migrants out of the country, and they was allegedly dropping them off out of cargo airplanes into the oceans, man, and washing up in shores in some cases. But it says Executive Order 14321 was signed by President Donald J. Trump on July 24th, 2025, during his second term, Trump 2.0. It says it represents a significant shift in federal policy on homelessness, public safety, and mental health treatment, emphasizing the use of civil commitment to address unsheltered homelessness and related urban disorder. Okay, and when you think of urban disorder, it goes into basically you jakes, your underfunded neighborhoods, the crime, the gangbang, and the YN shit. Okay, they disguise it under politically correct terms to throw you off, but essentially this bill is saying, look, if you ain't right, we got the right to grab you up and throw you in a FEMA camp. But it says here, urban disorder. Now, let's see something. Let's look up urban disorder and see what it tells us. All right, so let's do this real quick. Mental health. Let's see, Office of Justice Programs. Disorder in urban neighborhoods, does it lead to crime? We thinking disorder. Yep, it says, according to now familiar thesis, social and physical disorder in urban neighborhoods can, if unchecked, lead to serious crime. Hence, Chicago, you got what they call the Inglewood neighborhood, which is infested with crimes and gangs because, it's left unchecked. The funding has been taken out of that area, and a lot of the gang violence is concentrated within that particular demographic. It says the reasoning is that even such minor public incivilities, such as drinking on the street, spray painting graffiti, and breaking windows, can escalate into predatory crime because prospective offenders assume from these manifestations of disorder that area residents are indifferent to what happens in their neighborhood. It says the broken windows thesis has greatly influenced crime control policy, with New York City best exemplifying the use of aggressive police tactics to stem from disorder. Okay, so basically, disenfranchised neighborhoods, a lot of times, the core of crime, they would gentrify the area and build up these high rises and push Jake out, which in many cases, it makes it unaffordable to come back to the area. Okay, they did that in the Cabrini Green area of Chicago, Illinois. If anybody's familiar with that show called Good Times, that was shot where the interiors of the movie, where the exteriors was shot in Cabrini Green housing projects. But I believe the rest of it was like an actual studio. But it took place in Cabrini Green, which is basically a group of high rises that was tore down back in 2011 because of the crimes. I used to work actually across the street from it when I lived in Chicago, and I witnessed them tearing the buildings down. And also, that was where that movie Candyman took place back in the 90s. And even the recent one that came out a couple of years ago, They actually shot that in Chicago in the re-gentrified area of Cabrini Green. So all those high-rise buildings and condominiums that they shot that movie in, that was where the high-rises once stood. So they knocked them down and they pushed Jake out south. Hence, your old hoods like Dalton, fucking Harvey, Calumet City. They're basically new hoods now, which Harvey been a shithole since like the mid 90s. But it was a point in time you couldn't drive through Harvey, Illinois and be a so-called black man. Okay, they'll lock your ass up, man. All right. Crestwood, all those places now. But it says here, it says during his second term, it says the order was published by the Federal Register on July 29, 2025, and marks the departure of the Housing First model, which was guided federal homelessness initiative for the past 2 decades by prioritizing permanent housing and voluntary services without preconditions. It says key objectives and provisions. It says the order focused on restoring public order by redirecting the federal resources towards institutional care, stricter enforcement of local laws, meaning they're going to police your areas. Okay? It says stricter area or enforcement of local laws and coordination among agencies. It says its core premise is that surrounding our cities and citizens to disorder and fear is neither compassionate to the homeless nor citizens, but advocating for the humane institutionalization of individuals who cannot care for themselves due to severe mental illness or substance use or disorders. And we know that America has a very, very strong very strong mental health. Okay, there's a cry out for mental health here, and one reason is because of the policies and the particular movements, and they fund these things. The woke movement, Libiquita, that movement which allows a bunch of mentally disturbed people to run around proclaiming to be something that they're clearly not. And then also you got feminism, okay, women's lib, all these political movements on the far left side to totally wrap Jacob in this heathenism, man, which is essentially idolatry. You see, now the mental health crisis is at an all-time high here. And allegedly this bill is supposed to curb that, but clearly it's not, because we're seeing what's happening in the cities. We're seeing small pockets of martial law and civil unrest. But it says promotion of civil commitment encourages states and localities to expand the use of involuntary civil commitment for laws of homeless individuals with mental health or substance use issues who pose risk to themselves or the public. It says this involves shifting people from the street encampments to long-term institutional settings for treatment, hence FEMA camps. Okay. So anyway, let's get a precept real quick and I'll play this video. This is the book of Micah 2. And I'm going to start at 1. It says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. It says, when in the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And that's talking about your officials. Okay, your congressmen, your senators, your politicians, your lobbyists, which America is pretty much funded by lobbyists. They take bribes. And this is how presidents are put into places of authority. And, they get away with a lot of shit, man, okay, because you got lobbyists. Okay, America is owned lock and stock by the small hats. So, you pay these lobbyists off and you get certain things pushed, and then, you get these big kickbacks at the end of the year. I'm talking about you getting hit with $20-30 million bonuses, and then places like Vanguard and BlackRock and, Palantir, they start to surface up and they start to buy out all these public sectors, and, they merge them. And this is the result of it, man. So it's a bunch of NGOs that's dictating the affairs of a so-called democracy, man. Okay, which America is really a republic. Okay, it's ran by oligarchs at the end of the day, your elite structure. All right. And it says, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away, so that they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. How can you be oppressing your heritage? Okay, because for one thing, us calling ourselves Hebrew Israelites has gotten the attention of the elites. Now they declare war on the internet. They declare war on truth. Hence, they want to shut this content down. Okay. I was watching a video and mentioned that everything is a psyop and a psychological operation. That's what it is. Okay. The American dream was all a psychological operation to be a benefactor to the elites. Okay. It's wicked. So let's play a this video and get a couple of precepts, and that'll be that. But it's interesting on how this is tied into what's happening now. All right.
What's Executive Order 14321? Professor Poutine here, time for Mysteries Histories. Nominally titled Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets. Sounds like a good thing. This is the executive order that's being used by the National Guard and ICE and police to sweep the homeless people off the streets in Washington, D.C. and maybe in Memphis and Chicago and St. Louis, wherever else the Trump administration decides to go. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm not homeless, so I don't care. There's a few sentences in there you probably should be aware of, and if you don't believe me, I put the link in my bio below. You can read it for yourself. There is a sentence in there that authorizes the reversal of state and federal precedents against involuntary incarceration. And it encourages all the federal agencies that are executing this particular order to target chronic drug users, the mentally ill, and the homeless. And they are to put those people into, quote, appropriate facilities for an appropriate amount of time. Now, you might be thinking that's a great idea. Put them into a treatment facility, put them into a hospital, put them into a halfway home. If need be, I guess we could put them into a mental institution or a prison. Yeah, but the executive order also says that if there's no room in a mental hospital or a treatment facility or prison, quote, this executive order ensures that those individuals are not to be released back into the public, end quote. Well, where are we going to put them? Oh, right, Alligator Alcatraz. Good thing we built those concentration camps. And again, you may be saying, yeah, but I'm not homeless. I'm not a chronic drug user. Maybe not. But have you ever sought treatment for alcohol addiction or any other addiction? Have you ever sought medical treatment for anxiety or depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia? Any other mental illness? Know anybody that has? Because this executive order also authorizes the federal government to hand over the medical records of anybody who might be in need of, quote, involuntary incarceration, end quote. And just as an aside, ICE about a month ago received access to the medical records of all 79 million people on Medicaid. Normally, this is to go after undocumented migrants, but since most undocumented migrants don't use Medicaid, what do you think ICE is searching those medical records for?
We have some breaking news. What if the government could lock you up just for being different or for having a different opinion? Trump just signed an executive order that lets states force people into treatment centers against their will if local authorities act on it. The public thinks this is about homelessness, but it's not just that. The homelessness issue seems to be a distraction from the real purpose of this order. The order says anyone deemed mentally ill and unable to care for themselves could be institutionalized even if they have a home. No jury, no trial, just a government official deciding you're a risk. Trump's DOJ was even told to overturn court rulings that protect your right to refuse confinement. Civil rights groups say this could be used to silence protesters, whistleblowers, or anyone the government wants to disappear. There's no new money for care, no limits on who decides, just a pen and power, and Trump is wielding that pen. This isn't a homelessness policy, guys. It's a blueprint for control and fear.
I just can't stop thinking about this. The Attorney General shall, quote, assess federal resources to determine whether they may be directed toward ensuring, to the extent permitted by law, that detainees with serious mental illnesses are not released into the public because of a lack of forensic bed capacity at appropriate local, state, and federal jails or hospitals. What in the hell does this mean? Warehousing people? Using those billions of dollars in the new detention facilities to disappear people living in poverty? We're already seeing reckless human rights violations, violations of due process for undocumented people, as well as those with citizenship. So how are we supposed to believe this administration will follow any sort of principles related to preventing human rights violations when it comes to this plan for the unhoused? I can't even describe the level of rage that I feel. I may, at this point in this video, have a rage rash on my neck. I don't know. I hope I do, because I want people to see the rage here, because I hope you feel it too. I hope you know that you're not alone. Under the guise of public safety, this administration is prepared to amp up their assaults on human and civil rights. And so this is what they want. They want to push more people into poverty. They want to push people living in poverty out of sight in the form of involuntary commitment for poverty, or by tossing them away in a cage. And they want the rest of us to accept it. I don't. I reject the propaganda that tells me that there's something unique and special about me that allows me to live in a house and not on the street. I'm lucky. I'm no different than anyone who's living on the street, and I know that I'm not immune from ending up there myself. Should enough
See, people realizing that it's the government, they're all full of shit, all right? They understand, and really this is dedicated to grab you tribes up because, matter of fact, let's go, where we at? Psalms 94. Let's go back to this. Matter of fact, I'm going to read this. This is the book of Psalms 94, and I'm going to start at verses 20. It says, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frame mischief by law? Okay? Yeah, they frame mischief by law because they put certain things that is like, are you serious? They put certain grievances into power, and now the people have to abide by it. Like, prime example, this whole digital ID shit. Okay, everybody's going to have to get a digital ID now because of the simple fact, if you don't, then you will be declared a so-called terrorist. You know, all because you don't want to opt into getting your rights infringed on. Now, all of a sudden, you just, you know, you're a menace to society now. And that's how they're going to push these narratives. That's mischief by law, man. That's what it says. But the Lord is my defense, and my power is the rock of my refuge, all right? Because, see, in this time, we're going to have to solely put our faith in Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, man. Okay, and just believe in him, you know? And belief is a gift. It's something that the Heavenly Father has to put in you. And in coming to these times, we're going to get endowed with more faith, okay, more spiritual understanding, because the scriptures say, roughly paraphrasing it, it says, draw near into the Heavenly Father. He's going to draw near into us. So now, you know, pushing out these shows and operating on the right frequency is very essential at this time, because these people are getting ready to be cut off. And it says, and he shall bring upon them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off on their own wickedness. Yea, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai shall cut them off. And this is why you got whistleblowers among their own ginses snitching on them, man, because they're getting ready to capture it. They're getting ready to target their own people off, and they're targeting their own people. Hell, a lot of the homelessness are Edomites, you know. But Job 18, and I'm going to start at verses 5. It says, yea, the light of the wicked should be put out, and the sparks of his fire should not shine. The light should be dark in his tabernacle, and his candle should be put out with him. It's going into his rulership. It says the steps of his strength should be straightened, and his own counsel should cast him down. Yeah, his own counsel. Okay, you've been found out by your own people. They're exposing you because they are being affected, because now the common Edomite is realizing that they don't have a piece of the pie. So they're exposing you. And it says here, and he is cast into a net by his own feet, and he walketh upon a snare, and the gin should take him by the heel, and the robber should prevail against him. It says the snare is laid for him in the ground, and the trap for him in the way, and terror should make him afraid on every side, and should drive him to his feet. And this is why this devil is on edge. Okay, Revelation 12:12. You see, what is this? Isaiah 42. Is it Jeremiah 42 or Isaiah 42? No. It's Jeremiah, I think. Nope, 42. Bingo. This is Isaiah 42. And I'm going to start at verses 22. It says, but this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all hid. It says, they are all of them are hid and whole, or Salakia. It says, but this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey and none delivered, and for a spoil and none said restore. That's our people. They say 75% of Jakes, including the Latin tribes, make up the prison population, but Esau commits over 50% of the crimes. So how's the mathing? You see? So yeah, man, he's getting ready to come down with great wrath. He's getting ready to putting people, and I won't be surprised if he's locking people up in these camps already, because we haven't heard anything else about alligator Alcatraz. And the brother said it, the minute you don't hear about it in the news, that's when you really got something to worry about. Because when the media is not shedding coverage on it, And that's when, things are technically happening. Because, let me see something. Let me look this up. Updates on alligator Alcatraz. I don't know if they closed it down or what, but alligator Alcatraz update. Okay. Yeah, the latest update on that was roughly about a month ago. Well, 11 days. It says, where detainees, hundreds of alligator Alcatraz prisoners disappeared. Many immigrants missing. So roughly about a month. Well, 7 days. See, prisoners are coming up missing. Why? Where are they taking them? Probably taking them and unaliving them. Yeah. One big psyop. Last precept, Romans 13. Matter of fact, no, Romans 13 and 11, it says, and knowing that the time that is now, it is high time to wake up out of sleep. For now our salvation is nearer than what we believe. Yeah, it's time to really focus. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness. Let us put on the armor of light. And let us walk honestly as in a day, not in riotiousness or drunkenness, not in chambering or wantonness, not in strife and envying, but putting on the Lord Yahweh Shai, and make not provisions for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. So now is not the time to be getting sidetracked and getting lackadaisical, man. And now is the time to really lock in and pay attention, because there's so much shit going around. Like I mentioned, you blink, you miss a lot. Like I ain't been on YouTube in a day, and I already missed probably over 1,000 videos and 1,000 updates just off not being on for a day. Because I have to recalibrate, man, because being on this shit will overly stimulate you. And you be, man, it's like, wow. Isaiah 10:1, it says, woe to them that decree unrighteous decrees, that write grievances which they have prescribed, right, a law, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. And this is what we're seeing with these devils. Okay, so with that, all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Makakwadash. Lord's will, you are edified. To the next lesson. Shalom.